Anyway, so we're talking about this incident where, there's a little bit of a kerfuffle between some Leinster players and the Sharks players. It's not really that big of a deal.
No, 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 no. It wasn't. It was just a little bit of
Nobody
shoving.
really gets too offended. They're just kind of grabbing each other by the collar and kind of going, "Hey, guy, fucking back off" or whatever. But these two guys, there's a lady and a guy, and you can, like, the camera zooms right in on them. You can lip read, and that's the part that I found funny, because the camera stayed on them. Like, he was actually looking at, and you can clearly hear, if you can lip read, they're saying "f him up," like, and they're shit, like, and it's okay. Look, that's culturally, well, obviously, I think they were just a bit too drunk, but
Yeah.
you wouldn't do that. I mean, you just, that's a bit too kind of, it's a bit too far over the line for I think anyone really. I'm not going to slander all South Africans or all Sharks fans. I think that was a little bit too far over the line, but it was just funny the way the camera.
I think it's just also kind of a bit of a cultural difference too, because like, like fuck them up. Like that's, I mean, that was kind of like the big line from the 2019 rugby, fuck them up physically. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of like the breed that South Africa really, really ties itself to, is kind of like that hard-nosed physical rugby. And it's kind of it's always been their brand. It's kind of how you raise the players, you raise the kids to,
Yeah,
if there isn't blood, it's not really a game, and it's,
I get you, but I mean, I don't think for a second Rassi means, what these two people meant. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Those guys were drunk fucking Durbanites, man. You can't take to what they say They were, look, man, I told you before we started recording, and if there's any Durbanites that happen to see this, you can argue all you want. You are the Florida of South Africa. You are the Florida of South Africa. Like, it's, and it's like, I say that as a Texan in America, like, Florida and Texas are kind of the same. It's not really, I mean, it's a great place, but yeah, it's just kind of, it wasn't really the most tasteful thing to happen. But I mean, take in mind, I mean, like, unfortunately those guys weren't drinking what I'm having, which is a Dos Equis Zero mixed with a Don Michelada original. I don't do the alcohol. Maybe they shouldn't have done it either, and maybe they wouldn't have acted like ass clowns. Like, that was kind of like, I mean, dude, there's always those times where you're embarrassed at like your crowd a bit, and I mean, like, as a South African fan, when I've seen them pan to the crowd, there's definitely some people that I'm just like,
really? Yeah,
like, it's embarrassing just because it's like,
happens all over the world. But usually the stadium director tells the cameraman, get that off the screen. But not in this case. He zoomed in. Like,
it's just, it's like sometimes, like, when you see it, it's like you just see somebody and you're just like, God, did you not look at yourself before you left the house, man? Like, do you not have a mirror in your automobile? Like, you look terrible. I mean, like, shit, I live in America, so like the problem you'll have here is you'll have them put them on like some bad looking chick in the, fine chick in the crowd, and the whole crowd will go, ooh, and it's just kind of like, I don't really like that either, because it's kind of like, you know what, maybe she doesn't want the attention. Some people don't want attention, and it's just, it is what it is. But let me go ahead and throw up the scores on the weekend here, and we'll see what is up here, man. I mean, like I said, I did my Safa talk. We fucking went off on the whole Sharks Leinster situation. I mean, and we could continue to do that, but I kind of don't want to, because that's not what we're here to chat about, man. We had a big game in a neutral. I mean, it wasn't technically a neutral ground, but it was Connacht Munster. It was at not Connacht's home stadium, which has a dog track around it. People, if you look it up on Google Earth, there's a greyhound track around Connacht Stadium. I mean, it's a very small stadium. It's only like 9,000 people, but like, I never noticed that until you said something. And then, like, It was a great crowd, sellout capacity crowd. I know my friend Zara was there. We know the Connacht crew was there. I'm sure he was doing massive bong hits after the fucking game, after that loss. But it was a great fucking game. Very tight. 30-24 final score. Came down to the wire. There was a disallowed try. That crocodile roll that they called on Aki, I kind of felt like that was a little bit because he didn't really.
He didn't
It's a
get him by the neck. He didn't
he
get him
didn't
by
get
the
him. Yeah,
neck.
he just got him on the shoulders, and I mean, I
Yes.
get it. You have to call it when you call it, but I kind of felt like that was a bit. Yeah, a bit suspect. Like I wouldn't have. I would have called a penalty. I don't know if I would have disallowed. I don't know,
Well,
man.
you definitely, yeah. Well, we can get to that, but I mean, like, what would I say? Like, overall, yeah, like a really tight game. Like it was, I suppose, like the headline is, yeah, like you mentioned it, 25,000 sellout. It was,
Perfect weather, a bit
yeah,
windy.
a bit windy, but it's as good as you're going to get, at this time of year in Ireland. So like the main thing was they managed to take the game away from like their home. Like it's a good hour and a half away from Galway City, so it's quite a bit away from like in terms of Ireland. Like it's quite a bit away. Like I know, like you
Yeah,
know,
I was saying it looked like it was in the middle of nowhere because like the town was just kind of it was because it seems like in Ireland all your cities are on coast. They're coastal cities, like
yeah,
they're by the water. This was quite a bit inland,
yeah,
but like I said, it looked absolutely amazing on TV to watch it because you saw a good crowd. It was clear skies. It was a bit windy. We saw that in some of the lineouts, but overall for the success of rugby, it's a town that you were mentioning doesn't get a lot, and
it
they
doesn't.
came out in full force. Now I know a lot of people traveled for the game, and that's good, but it's also good to get those games because even in South Africa, that's why they'll do the games in like Mombella every once in a while, or they'll do the Bloemfontein games or the Port
Yeah,
Elizabeth games. You've got to put rugby games for everyone to get a chance, and um, I didn't tell you. I looked at the prices for the tickets. The tickets were affordable.
how much roughly?
Um, I was on a third party reseller, and I mean, they were like 35, 40 euros.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
that makes sense.
so
Oh,
for me, like, that's the point. I've never brought that up with you. I will say this living in America, our tickets are ridiculously expensive for everything here. Ireland keeps the price point at an affordable price point. Like you can go to a URC game in Ireland and it's fairly affordable for
oh yeah,
pretty much anyone. Like if you want to go now, all the extras, the beers, the food, that kind of stuff's going to cost you. But like if you want to go to a rugby game and at Thomond Park, it's not like you don't have to take out a loan to do it. Like it's you can afford it. It's not super expensive. Like
absolutely for sure. Like yeah, I mean, they had a number of things to balance. I suppose that the price point was always going to be pretty consistent. Like the rugby tickets in general for like URC level games are always going to be in around that 30 to 40 bucks. That's the most you're going to pay
yeah,
unless you want like premium seating or whatever. But like obviously, if the object of the exercise is to attract in potentially new fans that haven't seen the game up close before, they may have only watched it on TV. If
yeah.
that. You obviously don't want it to be too expensive, and it was really successful from that point of view. Like, and I think while I've spoken to a lot of Connacht fans, and they were like terribly disappointed that they lost, and it was a big occasion for them. Actually,
Yeah.
in the long run, I think they win overall because you have to understand Connacht like is not a rugby center. It really isn't.
Yeah.
Like Limerick is in Munster, Cork, and obviously Dublin as well. They're rugby kind of centres. So like you really have to kind of do this kind of work to promote it. You really have to put it out there.
It,
You know,
to me, it was kind of akin when Leinster will do games at Croke Park. Like
yeah,
it's a
same thing.
special occasion. It's a much bigger arena. It's a much bigger venue, and obviously they do well because it's Croke Park and it's in Dublin. This to me it had that same kind of vibe. It was a neutral ground within a territory that was much bigger than the home ground you're used to. And it shows positivity that, like, hey, look, if we did have a 20,000 seat stadium, maybe we could fill it. Like, and that's ticket revenue, that's money being spent not just at the game, but the businesses that are around it. Because if you've been to any sporting event in Europe, there's the game itself, and then there's everything that happens in the pubs around the game before, during, and after. Like, that's from a business standpoint, that's where your revenue really starts to roll in, because you start seeing the benefit to the local businesses, because people are coming in there, they're buying pints, they're buying food, and so
For sure, and like the thing to obviously to take into account as well as it's not their stadium, so at least 50% of the cut is going directly to the stadium owner,
yeah,
which so is it a money making exercise? I actually don't think it is. I think it's like a pure promo exercise. Now they still get like you're talking about revenue coming from outside streams, like kids buying jerseys,
yeah.
kids buying merchandise, stuff like that. Like obviously, there's lots of revenue there, but all you're potentially dragging people or bringing people into become Connacht supporters, and that's your future benefit. A
And
lot of
that's
kids.
and like I said, whenever they do it in South Africa and the Derby games do well, there really is no loser, because Rugby won at the end of the day. It was a really beautiful game to watch. The crowd looked amazing. The crowd was into it. Especially when that try got disallowed, you heard the home crowd very, very upset with that. And I think there was another moment earlier in the game where they were probably even more upset.
Mm,
We'll go back to the first half.
yeah,
A Kiwi whose discipline has been suspect at times. Alex Nankivil, he does get that was a red, right? Was it a red card?
straight red. Didn't even get it.
And that was a deserved red card. There was no debate. That was 100% a red card.
Yeah.
With Clayton McMillan coming in, I'm sure a tongue lashing would have been the least of Alex's concern by the time that was up. But I want to talk about, in particular, it's something we've talked about on here during the Six Nations, and we can talk about it again, and that is Jack Crowley.
Yeah, it's a hot topic. Yeah,
He had a lot of really good turnovers, or not turnovers, but he had a couple steals. He made some amazing defensive stops, especially in the end of the game. Matt Hansen breaks out. If he had gotten past Crowley, that would have been a try immediately, because no one was going to catch him. Crowley steps up, gets low, grabs a leg, and pulls him down. And the first thing I said when I saw that was like, dude, Prendergrass would have been 10 meters away.
Oh yeah, we never got to him. Yeah.
And could Pendergrass catch him in a run? Probably, maybe. But it's the fact that he would have been out of position. Crowley, there were a couple of really good, lots of good phases moving forward. Crowley is not behind the line. He would be on the line. He would be in the mix, guiding traffic, making offloads when necessary to make tries. And maybe that's an age thing. Maybe that's an experience thing, because you don't ever see that. That's what we complained about with Pendergrass in the Six Nations, was he was never that guy.
Yeah.
He was
talked up to be that guy. He actually sat in the pocket very deep, too often.
And Crowley, I want to say I remember at least 4 times him digging balls out of the back of rucks.
Yeah.
Because the 9 would be in the ruck, he would run in and grab the ball. And it's like, you want to see that with a 10. You want to see that ferocity. And I know the debate will continue with Leinster fans for as long as it can, but I'm sorry, Crowley is a much superior 10.
Yeah.
If you're looking at what you want in a 10, it's Crowley. It's not Sam Prendergast. It's Crowley. You want that guy that's on the line. You want that guy directing traffic. You want that guy making defensive stops. You want that guy seeing gaps in opposing offenses and running in and stealing balls, jumping up on the line and stealing a ball. You don't see that with Prendergast. He hides back behind everything. And maybe, like I said, maybe it's a youth thing. Maybe it's an age. He just isn't comfortable yet.
Yeah.
Maybe it's out of necessity because at Leinster he doesn't have to do that. But when you play for Munster, your 10 has to be that guy. You have to be that guy.
Well, like I mean, that's what he is. You know, there was a lot of was one or two breaks he made as well. You know, where you could, he had to make a call. Like he was in a line of 13 guys. You know, and once or twice he made breaks, and like it was kind of risky. You know, if you're going to have the support because you're down two guys. You know, if you take it into contact, are you just going to turn it over? But he was clever. His decision making was really, really good. Both himself and the guy in picture, Craig Casey, I thought were excellent.
Excellent. Yeah, Casey had a hell of a game. I feel like I said, it's kind of had you had Crowley the prior weekend, do I think there would have been a different result? Yes, I do. 100%. 100% different result.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the nature of Six Nations too. You do have to let some guys take a break, and I do understand that. I do want to talk a little bit more about Connacht, just because it's a team that I don't follow.
Yeah.
I know Bundy Aki plays there. I know Matt Hansen plays there.
Yeah.
Who's the front row guy with the braids?
That's he plays. I'm terrible with names. He's a tight head with Ireland. Australian born.
Hold on. I'll see if I can pull it. You pulling it up too? Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, terrible. Yes, Finlay Bealham. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, I didn't realize he played for Connacht. Like because I don't follow the team. You know the big names, obviously. You know, Aki and Hansen are there, but you don't really see because you don't really pay attention to the team that much because they are. Let's face facts. It's like Ulster and Connacht are kind of the odd kids out when it comes to Irish rugby. It's always been Munster, and now it's Munster and Leinster. And they didn't look bad. Connacht didn't look bad. It was just there were moments where they needed to execute. That there was wasn't there a moment where it was like 15 on 13 for like 10 a good 10 minutes, right? I mean, they like
20 minutes, two separate 10 minutes.
Yeah. And it was like they couldn't capitalize. You'd see like they did score one time, but it was just you kind of saw how like Munster really was able to kind of spread out their guys and really fill gaps. And obviously, like I said, Connacht did score during that, but you could kind of just see it wasn't Connacht didn't just start running the show now that they were up a man or two. Munster kind of.
For me, it came down to Munster's defensive tactics. So, like they ran a rush defense, like a blitz defense. So. And it really like if you notice, if you were watching, obviously, if you were paying attention, like almost every time Connacht attacked, they were going backwards because obviously the blitz defense was before they could get the ball to the 13 channel. Munster were on them, like they were on a lot, borderline offside, but they got away with it. And it took Connacht a long time for them to adjust. Now. You might have noticed, obviously, like it's easy to say, like they've adjusted when Munster were down to 13 men, but Mac Hansen joined the line as a distributor fairly kind of halfway through the second half, and he really was effective.
When the momentum took a big shift, it was a really beautiful 50-22 from him. He was out left, he saw a space, he kicked. And you could kind of chase it down, but it was just a little too far back because they were short men. They didn't have one of the guys back in the back. And it kind of did shift the momentum. They did end up scoring a try after that. But like, I think at the end of the game, when it got down to the last like 3 or 4 minutes, this was an edge of your seat game. It could have gone either way. You had the disallowed try on Connacht because of the crocodile roll by Bundy Aki. But you just kind of saw when it closed out. Unfortunately, I had to go back and watch the end of the game like 10 minutes later because my TV kind of crashed out for a minute. So I didn't get on social media. You had messaged me. I did not look at it because I wanted to see did they close it out. And I turned it on and saw that they did eventually close it out. And it was like, okay, good. But then being that I'm here in America, I get a different feed. So I'm seeing the stadium and like the kids were all getting autographs and
Yeah.
My wife had mentioned it was good to see John Klein back, but my wife had mentioned something. John Klein is walking out on the field, out on the pitch with his daughter.
Yeah.
Okay. My wife, who's American, very much never lived outside of the US, never experienced sports outside of the US. You know what she said? That's something you don't see here. You don't see that here. You might see it at the Super Bowl, but this is a club game. And these guys players are there with their kids and they're taking their
Yeah.
kids out on the field with them. And it's like, this is why I love this game. And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
why I continue to love rugby, because it still has that value system in it. Like, and you love to see it. So
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It was funny because like in like the Gaelic football, you know, which is the sport that's normally played in that stadium, um traditionally, like, there usually be like a pitch invasion at the end of the game.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. We've seen the videos, man. You Irish, man. Your Gaelic football. You guys are like die hard about that shit, man. Like
but
that's
the kids usually come on and completely mob the players for autographs and things like that, which is kind of part of the day, you know, and
yeah,
like nobody really gets too serious about it. Like, it doesn't really become a security issue. But you could hear over the tannoy halfway through, even the first half, the
yeah,
stadium announcer was making an announcement. Nobody is to step on the pitch at halftime or at full time.
yeah.
No,
You can't rush the field, guys. It doesn't work like you know. I have an Irish colleague who came over here in the early 80s on a track scholarship to Pittsburgh State University, not Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, but it's in Kansas. It's a little Division II school. And he was the first person that exposed me to Gaelic football, because he watches it like he's, a big thing. And then getting on here and meeting Irish kids and finding out it's an amateur sport. It's your national sport and it's an amateur sport. And having guys tell me that, like, oh yeah, the guy that plays for the local Gaelic club is my science teacher at school. And
yeah,
it's like, what? And they're like, yeah, because they don't get paid.
yeah.
And I think it's something that feeds into the Irish sport mentality, is that your biggest sport is an amateur sport.
Yeah, like it is by choice, like, definitely, but it's they just don't want the sport to be ruined, basically. But by
You mean like everything else that gets money involved in it?
exactly. So, and it's kind of, it's not like this. It's really hard to make massive decisions. It's not like a boardroom with 15 guys and girls that make the decisions. It's kind of community based. Like, if you could think of, 5,000 clubs all over the country,
Yeah,
each having one board and each
yeah.
having a vote, it actually takes a constitutional amendment to change anything like that. So
It was a great game. Enjoyed that Munster got the win. It helps them in the table. They got the full 5 points, so they will. And it also didn't hurt that. I don't know what I want to talk about first. I don't know if I want to talk about how bad Sasha and Damien were against Ulster, or should we just cut the shit and get down to Durban?
we get. I mean, like, I do want to mention a couple of things about like the Munster in general, like,
Okay.
just because, last week, like, we, before the game against Glasgow, like, we were texting, and I gave you a kind of a shuddering lowdown on the state of the squad and how many kids
Oh, it was a
literally.
bunch of guys. Who the fuck are these guys? Yeah,
There's some guys I didn't even know. I had to do some research, like,
yeah,
and it actually felt really good to see a Munster squad with, they got 6 or 7 guys back from injury, and, like, of
look
the rest,
proper.
like, it looked like, okay, this is a decent club here. We're kind of, we're in a competitive situation now. I have to put an asterisk. I wasn't impressed at all with Connacht, but just in general, so I kind of, like, the real test for Munster is going to be next week against La Rochelle in the European Cup. But so, while it was nice to get 5 points, like, we nearly shot ourselves in the foot. But again, like, I'm not going to be like, I'm not going to get over the top about it. They got 5 points. They were quite lucky to get the 5 points, but they got the job done. And it was, a lot of positives to see guys back. John Klein was one of them. Obviously we saw Jack Crowley. Our starting halfbacks were back together.
Connor Murray was back out there in relief at 9. That guy's, man, that might be one of the tallest 9s on the entire planet.
Yeah, he's built like a brick shithouse. He's bigger than, like, if you look at a lot of back rows, he's bigger than like a lot of back rows.
He is. We had watched a bit last night when we were chatting on when I'd phoned you on WhatsApp, and we were watching the Houston San Diego game, and they have kind of the same thing with Andre Warner, the former Lion. They have a very tall 9 in Houston, and you're just not. You're always used to your 9 being the short guy, and Connor Murray definitely breaks that mold. He's not a short number 9, and getting down into those small places. I mean, dude. I mean, I'm 42, and my back hurts just looking at the amount of times I've got to crouch down and pick up a fucking ball, dude. Like, oh.
But yeah, like, I mean, there was other players. Like, I mean, Ty Byrne was back. It just felt like, okay, there's still one or two positions we're incredibly weak in. Like fullback right now, both of our starting fullbacks are injured, and one, like, we don't even know. Like, one guy he's finished for the season completely, and another guy, Shane Daly's finished for the season. And Mike Haley is injured. I don't know what the status of the injury is at all.
Yeah. Will we know if Alex Nenkenville will he get an additional suspension for that red card, or will we have to wait until a disciplinary board meeting on Monday, like tomorrow or Tuesday?
I think he's going to get. I think we will. Well, we will have to wait for the disciplinary board, but I think he certainly will get another.
At least one game more.
It could be 3. It could be 3 games. Like, I mean, like, when you try and apply mitigation, like, a lot of times, and this is the most ridiculous stuff on the planet. Like, like, you see guys, they'll go over and they'll apologize to the player before they go off the pitch.
Yeah.
Right. And you think, oh, he's a good guy. It's okay. But on the Tuesday after the game, that's what he's bringing up as mitigation. Is like, well, I didn't try and hurt him. Look, everything was okay, and it's only done half the time to try and get the ban reduced. But, like, do I expect a ban? I do, actually. I do. I think it was just so stupid. There was just no need for it.
That was there. Like I said, there was no question it was a red card. Like, there was no question whatsoever. Like, I didn't debate the validity of that call whatsoever. So I think that's the difference too, is when it's painfully obvious. I think that usually regardless of what happened afterwards.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to discipline, I mean, I don't work for a discipline board or anything. I'm not on the judiciary for it, but I have a tendency to believe, and I've seen it in the past, guys like, the Sonny Bill Williams red card in 2017 in the British Irish Lions. Like, there was a reason he got suspended, because there was no mitigation. He leaned in with his shoulder, and I think that was Anthony Watson, that he just laid the shoulder straight. I mean, there was no.
Yeah.
He didn't slightly lift his arm. No, like, he's like grabbing his arm and doing. You know what I mean? Like, that's your shoulder, bro. That's a shoulder charge. There's no question. Like,
it was very similar here. Like, I mean, he tries to bind with his outside arm, but it's like. Yeah, but that's not the one that has the shoulder. The inside one is what did the damage. So, unfortunately, he's going to pay. And I just hope that we've got like 4 games left. I hope we get him back before the actual playoffs. But we should get him back before the playoffs. So he just needs to wake up. Referees are hot for this stuff, and the fact that the referee didn't send it to the bunker for it to be upgraded. He gave it straight.
He knew immediately it's a red. It's a red, yeah.
Which was, I in fairness, I thought the referee did well there. So
I didn't think he did a bad job the whole game. I mean, I thought the calls went well. He did call things when it was necessary. Like I said, the severity of that crocodile roll by Bundy Aki late in the game, I didn't think it was nearly as severe as it, because he didn't grab his neck. He grabbed the guy's shoulders to pull him off, but you could also see Bundy didn't argue. Like, he's like, yeah, look, I did. I crocodile.
I mean, I'm gonna slightly disagree with you on this, because the intent of the law is really to protect a player who's kind of in a like it's not really about his neck. Do you know what I mean? It's about
his body.
Yeah, he's standing legs. Do you know whether he's standing legs or you can get caught? Do you know what I mean? Like you get a leg caught, like exactly what happened to like sorry, it's not exactly what happened to DuPont, but you've seen it happen before.
Yeah. I mean, so that's like the whole thing. When I was learning about the sport, the crocodile roll was something that was very, very foreign to me. And for me, I always thought it meant like the head. You're grabbing somebody by the head and doing it. And then you've been another person that explained like it's not just the head, it's the whole body, dude. It's not just because 9 times out of 10 when there is a crocodile roll, it's not their head that gets screwed up, it's their legs that get screwed up. They bust a knee, yada yada yada, et cetera, et cetera.
It's usually an ACL,
yeah. And I mean, like as somebody that did actually have that injury myself, was not caused by a crocodile roll. Thankfully, it was caused by I stopped and the guy behind me didn't, and we didn't have anything in front of us except a meter tall board and a big old sheet of glass, and I had nowhere to go but into my legs, and there went my knee. So that happens when you play sports, unfortunately. It took me. I can say the famous line: "Cut me down in my prime when I wasn't even in my prime. I didn't have a prime, so like it just cut me down." So
I suppose the main thing before we move on from the game, like obviously he's like Munster. Like they 100% deserve to win the game.
Definitely 100%.
Like they were the better team on the pitch, even with 2 men down. They were the better team on the pitch. Like they controlled. Like when they literally didn't have passing options, they were just like, okay, we'll just keep recycling the ball here and go through a million phases.
Eat the clock. Yeah.
And they were excellent. And like people, the coach afterwards was talking about it. It's like, people just talk. They don't really give that enough credit. But how accurate you have to be to do it. Like you can't make a mistake. If you make a mistake in that situation, like Connacht are on top of you, they can break away, and a breakaway with 2 men down is more than likely going to be a try conceded. So
yeah. Well, you saw it. You did see that actually happen at one point. So cheers to Munster's coaching staff for really trying to keep the guys calm when anybody else in that situation would have probably lost their cool real quick, being down that much. And they really, dare I say, can I dare I say this? I kind of felt like they played better when they were down a man than when they had it full. Like it was.
It kind of happened so quickly. Look, the main thing for me is like their defensive system was set up really, really well, and I could see straight away that Connacht were going to struggle all day unless they changed their approach. So, but yeah, I mean, it does focus the mind. I mean, going 2 men down, like, I mean, you're in the shit, like, as Jack Crowley said, like, you just have to make the best of it, and that's what they did.
So that's that. It was a good game. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a fun game to watch. There were some games on the weekend that were definitely not nearly as fun to watch. The Bulls absolutely doing what you're supposed to do to Zebra Parma, which was just absolutely dissect them and destroy them in front of wasn't a big crowd at Loftus, but I mean I know a lot of people that were at that game as well, and they got their money's worth, obviously. I did watch that game. I watched Connacht Munster. I didn't have to watch Edinburgh versus Dragons because we already knew what the result of that was going to be before. I mean, Dragons are at the bottom of the table for a reason. I'll skip over it for right now. I do want to talk about the last game on the weekend. I turned it off when it was 28-0, and then I get on TikTok and you've got Murray and Steven. His name's actually Dan. I call him. Do you know where I get the Steven thing from with Rugby Rome?
No.
That's from Braveheart. Whenever the Irish guy shows up.
Oh, that guy. Yeah.
Steven. because he's got a beard, and I'm just like, you're Steven, and Murray is William Wallace, and he's like, no, man, that's not me, and I'm just like, and then he sends me a picture of him standing next to William Wallace's sword, and I'm like, I told you, man, you're Steven. He's like, but I'm not Irish. I'm like, but you have red hair and a beard. You, to an American, they're not gonna know the difference, bro. Like, it's like, so yeah, so they he does the 42-0 at half, and I'm just like, dude, they're gonna put like 70 on these guys. They never scored a single point after halftime, but neither did the Lions. And there are a lot of Lions fans that are, I don't know if they do really good in the first half of the season. They always are at the first half of the season. They're in the top 8. By the end of the season, they're at the very fucking bottom, dude. It's how it is for the Lions, man. They don't really have big talent, and that was not a full strength Glasgow squad either. That was not their best. Yeah, they fucking beat the absolute brakes off the Lions, man. Like, they beat them like they stole something. So
42-0, yeah. I mean,
yeah, that's
I did see like the Scottish were quite celebratory afterwards. I saw Franco Smith and like the presenters were, they were almost dissing the league and dissing the basically saying it was too easy. It wasn't just, they weren't just talking about this game. Obviously that game was too easy, but
we'll get to the. So I go into this Leinster game because they had said, like, look, if you've got Arahi Snaman and Jordy Barrett on a squad, you are not a B squad. You might have B players on there, but those guys are A squad players. The lineup that Leinster went into with this game at the Sharks in Durban at Hollywood Bets Park, excuse me, was a B squad. Literally, there was no big name on the team. A lot of those guys were U23 guys. Yep. And you go in, Sharks were 3-1 favorites to win that game. You had a very solid Sharks team. You had a front row of Oxenche, Vincent Koch, and Bongi Manombi. These are all Springboks. You had Sia Khaleesi at 8. You had Jordan and Jane Hendricks at 9 and 10, both Springboks. You had Makasole Mampipi at 11, a Springbok. You had Andre Esterhuizen, a Springbok. You had a solid starting 15 for the Sharks going into this. And you could almost assume, but I think in hindsight, the prior weekend, they only beat Zebra Parma by 1 point.
Okay, so there was 4 in there.
And you start to realize it, and you talk to Sharks fans, and they were like, we play to our opponent's ability. And it's like, you're not going to win games doing that. This was a game that the Sharks should have easily won, and they lost. And it kind of harkens back, and this was something I talked about with Pierre earlier, which is we've never, because of Super Rugby, we never took club rugby, because if you looked at Super Rugby over the history, it was basically New Zealand's competition. They won every time, regardless of which team it was. So when you grow up in South Africa, club rugby is not your pinnacle because you're not winning at club rugby. We try our best at the rugby championship. That's still New Zealand's thing. You weren't winning at that. So you really put all your hope and everything into the thing you can win, which is Rugby World Cups, which we have won.
Yeah.
But now we're playing in a competition where, I mean, you guys take club rugby very seriously. Like, that is the barometer for the success of your rugby. We've never used it as a barometer for success because we never had success, but we still won World Cups. That was our barometer for success. Now,
well, I wouldn't go so far as to say it's the be all and end all of Northern Hemisphere rugby, but I would say, like, I mean, like the head to heads. I would also say, like, it is a moneymaker. It's a serious moneymaker,
and that's what I'm saying. You put a lot more emphasis on club rugby than we ever have.
Yeah.
We ever have, because we weren't winning at club rugby. Now, with that being said, we don't play in Super Rugby anymore. We play in a competition where the competition matters. And I think that you see teams that take it very seriously. The Bulls take it very seriously. The Stormers, for the most part, everybody takes it very seriously. And then there's teams that you see that definitely don't. I think with the Sharks, it's something we've been calling for off and on. They need to get a new coach in there with that kind of talent, with that kind of ability. You look on paper, the Sharks should be Leinster. They should be that good.
I mean,
and they're not, and they never are. And it's like, they'll have bright flashes here and there, but like they're not with that kind of. Look on paper. Look at how many Irish players on Leinster, and look at how many Springboks are on the Sharks. They should have similar records, and they don't. They never have. They never have.
Yeah,
and
I suppose it hasn't helped. It really hasn't helped when Super Rugby's been on a long, slow death. Like it has. Like, do you know what I mean? It's been dying for a decade or
I don't feel like it was so much dying. Well, that was brought up previous to, which is for those of us that grew up on Super Rugby. I think the problem with Super Rugby was that it expanded way too much.
Okay.
You did not need a Japan team in there. That Japan team was trash. They were terrible. I got why they did it, though, because the World Cup was going there and they wanted to create interest. The Jaguares in the beginning were fucking terrible. Now, by the time that they were done, they had made it to the championship final in their last year in the competition, but it took a long fucking time. And the Jaguares were essentially the Pumas. They were the Argentine national team, and it helped a lot. It helped their team a lot. But when you had like the Cheetahs and the Southern Kings playing in Super Rugby, or like the Western Force, because none of those teams were ever fucking competitive. Ever competitive. And honestly, if you really want to think about it, the Sharks were never competitive in Super Rugby either. It was predominantly the Lions, the Bulls, and the Stormers. The Lions made 4 Super Rugby finals in a row. People are like, how did that happen? That was when you had Malcolm Marks, Faf de Klerk, and Elton Yankees all playing. That was before that team got blown up. And it's the coach of that team, Johan Ackermann, is available. He was in Japan for a while. He's now available. And there's a lot of people like me that are like, he should be coaching the Sharks. But the problem with Johan Ackermann is he's not going to, all those Springboks and shit, he's not going to want all those guys. He likes to develop talent. And that's what you need. That's what a good coach develops players. John Plumtree is handed players. And I don't know if you noticed their most recent signing. They're getting Edville van der Merwe from the Lions, another Springbok.
Yeah,
and it's like, is it going to make a difference this time? Probably not. Unless you get good coaching, you've got to have good coach. Me and you have discussed this. The foundation of a team is a good coach.
For sure.
You saw it with Rassie Erasmus. You're going to see it with Clayton McMillan. You're going to see you've got to have good, solid coaching. I mean, you even see it with the Irish national team. Look at what Joe Schmidt did. Look at what Andy Farrell does. You have to have a good coach. And if you don't believe me, go look at Steve Borthwick. He's a terrible fucking coach.
I mean, like, the proof is in this game that we're talking about now, because you have, and I'm not gonna diss this Leinster team. I am gonna point out a few players on it. Like, if we look at
who was that number 8 for them yesterday? That kid was fucking good. Whoever their number 8 was solid.
The thing about him is he's not a kid. Like, these Max Deegan, Will Connors, and Alex Soroka is relatively new on the scene at number 6, but like Max Deegan and Will Connors, they've been in Irish squads for like 5-6 years now. Like, these guys are, they just haven't been able to break into the actual, the first team, because look, you've got
look who's ahead of them. Look who's ahead of them in the pecking order.
Exactly. So, but these guys have been doing it for Leinster for years. I mean, who else was there? Andrew Osborne, who started for Ireland. We had, Jimmy O'Brien at 15, who's a fantastic player. He's played in the World Cup for Ireland. Tommy O'Brien, his brother, who actually looks even better. He looked fantastic. So, I mean, Cian Healy, an absolute veteran. But, so the difference being, and it goes to your point, is look who's the coach. So, double World Cup winning coach.
Yeah, Jock Nienaber, which It seems to be a very love-hate relationship with him in Ireland. I think when the national team struggles forwards-wise, they want to blame him and his coaching style with Leinster.
The defense, they want to, because of the change in the,
Yeah.
they're like, it's pretty weak stuff, to be honest.
Yeah.
But the idea is that with so many Leinster players playing a different defensive system than the Irish system, would it not be, is it just too difficult for them to quickly switch it on? Well, look, come on, they're professional players. You should be able to change your system inside the game, mind over the course of a few weeks, and they are. So it's not an excuse, but yeah, he does get a little bit of flack from.
Yeah. So overall on the weekend, I guess it kind of harkens back to what we discussed last night a bit, which is when we go 1-3 on a weekend as South African fans, do we think, oh shit, we're in trouble? No, we don't. We don't. I mean, it's not nearly as like we don't think that's any bearing on how good the Springboks are. And I think the biggest reason that is look how many Springboks don't even play in South Africa.
Yeah, true.
I mean, a good lion's share of our players are currently playing in Japan, and they're doing okay over there. So, which we really don't follow it because it's Japan and it's hard to follow their rugby. But
Yeah.
I think that's the difference. That's kind of a difference between South African fans and European fans, is that we don't really take it as like so like when Toulon came and played the Sharks, they tried to act like it was France versus the Springboks, and it's like, no, that's not France versus the Springboks, that's Toulon versus the Sharks. Or when the Sharks lose, they act like it's a black eye on South African rugby, and everybody's like, no, you just beat the worst team in South Africa. It's not a black eye on it. It's kind of like this whole thing that, we'd had the discussion with Ireland finishing third in the Six Nations. Does it mean that Ireland is in trouble? And then you see a game like this where you see some youth, and it's like, maybe it's because they just didn't have their coach.
Yeah, it's plenty of guys. There's plenty of guys. Don't worry about that. And they're just chomping at the bit to get in. They're literally chomping at the bit, and that's what you're looking at. You're looking at like the competition for places at Leinster is, I mean, off the charts. It is really, it's hard to overstate it. You have guys there like that are, like they're just, they're desperate to stay in Leinster. They don't want to be sent anywhere else. They get, and you might get 1-2 games. We saw Kieran Frawley. Look, I mean, he drew single-handedly a series in South Africa, and then has a bad 10 or 20 minutes in the Autumn Nations, and good luck. That's it. You're finished. So it's seriously competitive. I mean, like, I do take your point that like Southern, you guys think internationally an awful lot more, definitely, for sure. I would say, if Leinster were to fail again in the Champions Cup, people would start thinking, okay, ramifications for Ireland. At this level in the URC, no, I don't think so. Like, you can see, like, the way it's set up. I mean, Munster don't have the kind of luxury to send out a second string side in the URC. We've got to play our best side every week.
Leinster can do that. Most teams can't.
Yeah, and like their ideal model is to do that. They want one team for the URC. They want another team then for the champions. Yeah. And they really only want to play their top guys in the URC when it comes to semi-final, final, and that's pretty much it. Because they see a clear division between the competitions, and they just want a team for each division. Yeah.
You see it like their academy in Leinster. Like, as much as I don't like Leinster, their academy is bar none. It's one of the best in the entire world, and even Kiwis will say that. And having Kiwis say that means a lot. There is one other thing I do want to touch on, and we'd been discussing this, and it's kind of been like the hubbub of the rugby world for the last week, and it was the rumor that there was a potential move to Leinster to take place, and you had kind of said, "Hey, I know some inside things about all of this," and
Okay.
then we come out this morning to find out, yeah, it's definitely not happening. The Stormers will not let Damien Falemza go, and so he is not going to Leinster. It's not happening, folks. Any
Good
Leinster
for,
fans,
good for,
and
good for
something you had
Storm.
brought up that I didn't even think about, which is when it comes. Hold on. And did we lose signal? Oh no. There's no way this guy gets starting time over Hugo Keenan. There's just
No,
no
no, no,
way.
no.
There's no
Never.
way.
No.
And then if you look at him, like, do you put him in at 12? He's not really the best 12 or 10. He's definitely.
Like, this is no disrespect. No disrespect. He might get on that team that played the Sharks. He might get on that team.
Yeah. But I
That's
mean, like, he's not going to be a regular guy. So maybe it was just some rumor. People were talking, like, hey, let's cause some chat or whatever. But I just, and it really had to. I don't want to. We already did it on the last show. We did it with Pierre. We kind of talked about Damien, and it was like, dude, he looks good because of what's around him,
yeah. We mentioned that. Yeah.
and like he's still great. He's still honestly our best 15 in South Africa. But like we saw how he played against Ulster. Him and Sasha were terrible against Ulster. They were fucking terrible, and it's like he had a couple of missed tackles that led to tries, and it was just kind of like he's maybe not what like we think highly of him, but really at the scheme of things, like he would not get time over Hugo Keenan. Hugo Keenan is a lot more defensively sound. Now he's not nearly as flashy as Damien Falemza is, but when it
Yeah.
comes to the defensive side of the ball and being able to catch the high ball, that's really all you need as a 15.
That's your bread and butter. You're going to have to do
Yeah.
that about 8 to 9 to 10 times per game, and
Yeah.
you might get to attack the line once. So he's the 90% guy. He's not the 10% guy.
Yeah.
And that's what matters.
So we will be back next week with Champions Cup. Now, I have to mention, I'm not really the biggest, especially now that like there are no South African teams playing. Not even in the Challenge Cup. They're all done, guys. Rugby's done from South Africa when it comes to the Champions and Challenge Cup. But I know it's still alive and well for you Irish rugby fans. It's still like a thing. Unfortunately, we kind of shit the bed on that one with the South African teams. We fucking played terribly in it.
It's the only thing. Look, I know you don't really kind of want them to be in those cups, but I just think there'll come a time now where you might get bitten by the bug, and then all of a sudden because like when it comes to knockout rugby, it really, like the Champions Cup, the format, whatever, in the group stages is just too messy. Nobody bloody understands it. I don't even think the players understand it, but who you're going to be playing versus which group you're in. And but when it comes to knockout rugby, like it is box office. It is just box office, and like that's Leinster, Munster, we just absolutely, we live for that like our entire year. Like it's no coincidence that all of those guys are coming back to the first team in Munster now, a week before the knockout stages of the Champions Cup. That's no coincidence.
It's
like, yeah,
it's we got excited about it last year when the Sharks won the Challenge Cup. Everybody was watching that shit because it was they were winning and it was a team that was so bad in the URC, but they won the Challenge Cup. That's all that mattered. Like, so I just think maybe the longer we're in it, the more it'll actually mean something. But like for me, like I said, my arguments, I've made them on here many times why I don't think we should compete in it. It's not because we're not good at it. It's because the distances and the travel, it just doesn't. It makes sense at club level, but when it comes to like an invitational only tournament, which is what the Champions Cup is, you have to be you have to finish somewhere on the chart to have the opportunity to play for a Champions Cup. I just think that it's a bit difficult because of the travel, that kind of thing. Like if we could figure out some way to lessen that, maybe it would be a little bit more important. But for us right now,
like you basically have to, you're going to have to earmark guys. You're going to pretty much going to have to do what Leinster do. So
Yeah.
you'll have to have one set of guys that are on the URC kind of timeline, and their time is being managed for that, and you're going to have like, you know, another set of guys that are on the European rugby timeline, you know, and you really have to manage that. You'll have a little bit of crossover, but you almost have to have a second set, and you'll see like the clubs that are really successful in European rugby. I know they don't have to travel anywhere near as long as the you know, the South African teams would, but you know, they almost always have massive squads, like huge squads, you know, like
Yeah.
test level squads, you know, and I'm talking with the big French sides, Bordeaux and Toulouse. They're absolutely, I mean, they've got, you know, they're similar to like the box in terms of they can replace an entire pack in one go if they were allowed to do it.
If they had to, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like I said, I think the longer maybe we play in it, the more exciting it gets. But we'll be back because obviously I know you're excited. La Rochelle, this is going to be a big one.
It's a massive game.
It's win or go home. It's the difference between win and play another round, or lose and you're you know, sitting at home watching on the television instead of playing in the game the next week. So we'll be back obviously next week with that. We've got to jump off of here because we're going to look at, me and my wife are going to go look at another house. So we're still looking on the move and everything. So man, another exciting weekend of rugby. A bit disappointing, but I was able to make some funny videos out of it. Just an FYI for anybody that saw. That was an empty and clean rubbish bin. I did pull it right back out of the rubbish bin after I threw it in there. I'm not throwing away a brand new jersey like that. Like I don't make that kind of money to where I can throw my jerseys away. So
it's a brand new jersey. Okay.
So yeah, I mean, it had the tags on it until I got it. It was actually sent over to me by a lawyer in South Africa that said, "Hey, you don't have a Sharks jersey. Here's a Sharks jersey because you're a Sharks fan now." And I'm not technically, I'm not, but you know, that's how it is. So, is there any jersey you would never wear?
Obviously, Leinster jersey. Never. Jesus Christ.
Neither would I. And I've been asked, "Hey, do you want us to send you one?" I'm like, "No, I'm good, homie. I'm good." I will never wear an English or French jersey.
Yeah, I wouldn't wear an English jersey either. No.
I said I would never wear an Irish jersey until my colleague got me one. So
sweet.
Yeah, he got me one from. I think here. I'll show everybody at home from Intersport.
Yeah, that's the shop.
So he got himself one. He got me one. It's up in my closet. It was in the video. You saw me. I set it up to where you'd have to see all my jerseys as I'm fumbling through them, so I could be like, "Hey, everybody, look at how many jerseys I own," you know, whatever. But hopefully next weekend will be another winning result for Munster. But I think it's going to take a lot more than what you had this weekend to beat Connacht, to beat La Rochelle. You're going to have to play a perfect game to beat them.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to bring out a big performance now. I mean, La Rochelle are not in the best of form, but listen, this is a massive occasion. Like, I mean, we're playing against our former All-Star 10, you know, like our greatest ever player, you know. Their coach, you know. There's extra plane loads of people have been put on. Like, it's going to be like Munster people are going to take over this little town completely for a weekend, you know. I don't think the French really, not in this town, I don't think they know what's coming. But
it's at La Rochelle, it's not at home.
Yeah. Which is a small seaside town, La Rochelle, on the west of France. But
damn, is Antonio even going to be playing?
I don't know.
Or is he suspended? He's suspended, right?
I'm really not sure.
But you'll find out the lineup, and I'm sure we'll chat about it. But
sure.
Thank you once again, Colin. Cheers to you. I finished my michelada.
Very nice.
You're sipping your local brew there out of a thermos. You got to show everybody. Maybe they'll give you money for advertising.
Oh no, these fellas, no, they won't give me any money.
Maybe they'll give you a flat of beer. They'll give you a case of beer then. 24 pack of beer.
Get them to sponsor. Maybe if we start covering Swiss rugby. But
yeah. God. All right, guys. We'll see you guys next time. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.